everyone, Kelly here, and today I'm doing another try a chapter for my Unhaul series. So if you haven't seen my other videos, I'll link the playlist down below, but basically I'm just trying to go through my shelves this year and look at books that I've had on there for a long time and that maybe I've lost some interest in them, and try a chapter, see if I like the writing, see if I have renewed my interest in the book or whether it's time to move on and get rid of it. And last video I did of this, I said I only had a couple more left, but then I looked at my shelves and I just really thought, am I over young adult books? Because lately, a lot of the young adult books that I've read, I just haven't really been rating high, or I haven't really been enjoying them. The ones on my shelf have been there for a long time, like I've lost interest in them. So I decided to pull off even more books. So you have several more of these triad chapters coming, because now I have two just of the young adult books. So today I have 5 young adult books that I've pulled off my shelves that I'm not sure that they're for me anymore. They're things that I think all of these were ones that I heard about towards the beginning of my chapter or towards the beginning of watching BookTube, where I was watching a lot of people that read young adult, and at that point I didn't really know what my taste was. And so I just was buying things that they suggested because I got them for cheap. And a lot of these I have owned for like 2 to 3 years and have never picked up, never even like thought about picking up. So it's time to find out if I want to keep them or not. So the first one I have is Codename Verity by Elizabeth Wein. And this is a World War II, I believe, story about a woman who crashes her plane in Nazi-occupied France. And I had heard good things about this like 3 years ago when I was first on BookTube. I did hear a friend of mine read this book recently that enjoyed it, but like historical fiction isn't my genre to begin with, at least not one of my like most commonly read genres. And this being young adult, like the combination of the two, I'm not sure if I'm gonna love this. And I actually have 2 books in this like companion series that take place during World War II. And so I'm gonna try this one. If I don't like it, then I have 2 books to get rid of. If I like it, then that's even more to be excited about. And then next I have Challenger Deep by Neal Shusterman. And I've liked, a lot of things that I've read by Neal Shusterman, but this is one of his less popular books. Like I never really hear anybody talking about this. I think I heard about it like 3 years ago. Like I'm pretty sure I bought this book towards the beginning of my channel, and I haven't really heard anybody talk about it since, even though it was a National Book Award winner. But yeah, I don't really even know what this is about. I think I heard that like part of it takes place in the water. Like, I don't know if this boy thinks he can live underwater, or like if it's about mental health or what. I'm not even actually sure. So gonna give it a try, see if it's worth it. And then I have a book by an author. I've read a lot of her stuff, but I haven't read this because it's a different genre than what she normally writes, and that's Pivot Point by Casey West. She wrote this like duology, this kind of, I think, like a mystery thriller kind of young adult book. I think it also has some speculative fiction elements in it, which is so much different than almost everything else that Casey West writes. And I've read almost all of her like young adult contemporary romance books, but for some reason I've been putting this off, even though I own both books in the duology. I've been putting it off because it's so different than her other stuff. And then next is an author that I read a lot of her more recent books and enjoyed. I have The Anatomical Shape of a Heart by Jen Bennett. I have read more of her newer releases and enjoyed them, but this is an older one that I haven't really heard many people talk about. I think I've only heard like one person review it. Doesn't seem all that interesting. I think it's a contemporary romance, but it involves a girl that I think she is working with cadavers. Like that's her like summer internship. Is working with cadavers, and I don't know that that's really pulling me in or interesting me, so let's check out the beginning, see if it's any good. And then the last one is Radio Silence by Alice Oseman, and this one has been very popular on BookTube, but for some reason it just never calls to me. I think because it like takes place in the beginning of college. Like I think this girl is just starting out college and kind of like finding her way and stuff like that. And that just doesn't necessarily interest me as a woman of my age, like kind of discovering yourself in college. I don't know, like maybe it's just not for me in this time of life, but I figure I should give her writing a chance. I've never read anything by Alice Oseman, and she is very popular on BookTube, so I should at least give her a try since I own the book. So that's it. Those are the 5 ones that I'm going to try. I'll let you know what I think along the way. Okay, so I finished the first chapter of The Anatomical Shape of a Heart, and I was a little wrong in the fact that the main character in this, when I said that she works with cadavers, she's actually an artist, and she wants to like draw anatomy, and so she wants to get into this program to draw cadavers so that she can like get a scholarship for something. For drawing anatomy. Yeah, and so in the very first chapter, she's waiting to like talk to a professor of anatomy at the local like medical college, and she's waiting at the bus stop and runs into the main guy. So like right away in the first chapter, we have the like meet cute that wasn't like necessarily a big meet cute. They were like just at the bus stop talking, and we don't know much about the boy. It says on the back his name is Jack. They hadn't exchanged names yet, and so I don't really know anything about him yet. From this first chapter, I don't really feel like I can go either way. I don't think I want to get rid of it. Like, it was perfectly fine first chapter. So I think I'm going to keep this one and just kind of like have it as when I want a fluffy read, because there was nothing turning me off in the first chapter. So I'll keep it this time, and I'll let you know when I've read the next one. All right, so I read like the first 7 pages of this because it doesn't necessarily have firm chapters. There's like little sections, and so I just read the first like until there was another bold heading. And this is just a woman, like I said, who had crashed in Nazi-occupied France, and she is writing down like it sounds like, at least at the beginning, that she's writing down secrets to give to the Nazis in exchange for her life. I'm sure there'll be a point in here where something else will be revealed or whatever, but that's like at the beginning what she says she's doing. Like, she's writing down stuff to save her life. And there was just nothing in those first 7 pages that pulled me in at all. And so I went and looked at some reviews because I'm like, it's only 7 pages. I should like kind of like see what I think. And, you know, I was already going into this not really like excited about this because, like I said, World War II and it being young adult, like those two together just aren't buzzwords for me. Like, I know a lot of people like World War II fiction, but it's just not my thing, especially like if it is actively involving war, and, you know, a prisoner of war is actually, you know, like more focused on actual war. Not really like my style, so I looked up what people were saying. So the reviews that usually help me the most are the negative reviews, because, you know, if somebody didn't like it, I want to know what they didn't like about it, and is it the same stuff I wouldn't like. And a lot of the negative reviews were saying that this book just took a long time to kind of get into the main story, that it kind of started out really slow, and the first half wasn't as engaging, that was just kind of like a lot of backstory and pretty slow to start, but then a lot of stuff and twists and turns and more adventurous stuff happens in the second half of the book, which, you know, sometimes if I'm really invested in the topic, that's fine. But since I'm already not invested in this topic and finding out that the first half is really slow, nothing pulled me into that beginning. If that same kind of writing is gonna continue for 100 pages or 150 pages, I'm just not interested. I think this one's gonna go. Well, I had to move over. I was sitting at the table reading while the kids are playing, but it's sprinkling, and while the kids don't mind getting wet, I didn't really want my books to get wet, so I moved over. We have like an overhang, so I'm just like very close to the house right now because that's how I keep from getting wet. All right, so this book is like, the chapters are more like a page and a half. They're like little tiny snippets, so I ended up just reading like until I kind of got a feel of what was going on. So I don't even know how many pages I read, but I read like several chapters at the beginning, and it clarified more about what this is about. Like I was saying before, part of this takes place on a ship. So our main character, Caden, some of the chapters he's on a ship talking to a captain, you know, going on this journey in the ocean, and the other half he's like in regular life, you know, going to school, stuff like that. And it is showing that like he has a mental illness, and you know that those parts on the ship are part of a hallucination or whatever that is part of his mental illness or a coping mechanism for his illness. You know, obviously I just read the very beginning, so I'm not sure on the details of that, and I can see why this is an important book. I did read a couple of reviews too, and a lot of people were talking about how important it was of the like talking more about mental illness in teenagers. I totally get that this is important, but it was just very confusing the way it's written, and I'm sure as it goes on it becomes more clear what's going on, but the back and forth, it took me a lot of focus just to read those first few chapters. Like, yeah, because the chapters are so short, like some of them are only like two paragraphs. It jumps around a lot, it takes a lot of focus, and I just don't think that type of topic in a young adult book is what I'm really interested in right now. So having that, I almost would rather read it in an adult book at this point, but it gets really high reviews, so I'm not recommending it. Obviously I haven't finished it or anything like that. I'm just saying that I don't think that I want to keep it on my shelves at this point. Maybe I'll pick it up at a different point, or maybe I'll just be reading a different book about mental illness, and this just might not be the one for me. So this one I will be getting rid of. So far that's 1 I'm keeping and 2 that I am getting rid of. So I read the first chapter of Pivot Point. It was about 11 pages, so I think it was enough to kind of get an idea, and it was really interesting. I hadn't read the synopsis of this book in a long time, so when I was telling you kind of what was going on, it was very rough, and it is more of like a speculative fiction. In this world there are people with special abilities, and our main character Addison, she has a ability called she's a searcher, and so she's able to like search the future and see what a choice on either side would do. So like say a guy asked her to a dance, she can look into the future and see if going to that dance is a good idea, or if she should say no to him, you know, so she can see what her choices can do in the future and then make a choice based off of that. And in this first chapter we are learning about her ability, and we also are meeting other of her friends and classmates who also have special abilities, and it looks like everybody has different abilities, so that could be interesting. And then after that first chapter, I decided to read the synopsis to kind of see what this is about, and it turns out her parents are about to get a divorce, which we actually learn in the first chapter, and they have told her that she gets to choose who she lives with, and so she does a search into the future to see which is the better choice, and it sounds like there are some consequences to doing that search and seeing those options. So that actually sounds pretty interesting. The first chapter did pull me in. I liked kind of this concept of this school where everybody there had abilities, but they also had classes that were like, I don't remember what they called it, but it was classes that were about being normal, and so they had like math and science that were like their normal classes, but then they had classes where they were using their abilities and stuff like that. It just sounded pretty interesting. So yeah, even though this is not what Casey West usually writes, and I think this might even be her debut, I think I'm gonna give it a try and keep it, since I own both in the duology, and so far, I just hit that. So far it seems pretty interesting. All right, it stopped sprinkling, and I am on my last book. So this one also had like really short chapters, so I was like, well, I'll just read a few and see when I stop. And I just kept reading, so I think that's a good sign that I was like enjoying the writing and things like that. Not much had happened in the beginning. Whatever I said at the beginning of this video, I don't think I described this book correctly. I think it's kind of funny how you can have a book that is so hyped and still have no idea what it's really about, because I don't think what I said earlier was accurate. So we're following our main character, Frances, and she's still in high school, or whatever you call it in England. I'm not sure, but she is not going to uni yet, and like I think she still has another year of school before she goes to uni, and she listens to this podcast that she really enjoys, and she gets asked to participate in the podcast through her art and things like that. And that's basically all I have read so far. I made the mistake that after I was reading the section I read the synopsis, and I probably shouldn't have, because I think that the synopsis tells you things that don't happen towards the beginning, or at least just more than I wanted to know, because I was kind of enjoying just like getting to know the characters and not really knowing where it was going, other than the fact that you know right away that she enjoys this podcast. Like, I had no idea where it was leading me, and so now I know a little bit more from the synopsis, and I kind of wish I had just been able to go with Frances and see what was going on. So yeah, I'm not going to mention like the full-on synopsis, because maybe you also are somebody that doesn't know a lot about a super hyped book and want to go into it kind of without knowing what's going on. So yeah, I'm enjoying the writing. I think I want to continue on with this, even though not much like actually happens in this beginning section. Yeah, I was just getting on with the writing and the characters and want to see where it goes. And because this is such a, you know, well-loved book and a beloved author, I want to give it a chance, especially since this is Pride Month, and I'm pretty sure there is some form of LGBT plus representation in this book from what I know of Alice Oseman and all of her books. So to go back through, I am keeping this one, and also The Anatomical Shape of a Heart for when I'm in the mood for a romance. And then I'm very interested in what was happening in Pivot Point, so I at least want to like get farther into this one and see if I'll enjoy this duology. And then I'm getting rid of 2 books. So I'm getting rid of Codename Verity, because I think it just has too slow of a start, and the fact that it's historical fiction, World War II, doesn't really make me want to push through the boring beginning. And then Challenger Deep, I just think that right now it just, the way the writing is a little more complicated, and going back and forth was a little too much for me right now. It takes a little more of my focus, and not really like the age group that I was really wanting to focus on. So getting rid of 2, keeping 3. Hopefully I will enjoy all of these and get to them soon. So if you've read any of these books, I always enjoy hearing from you down below, and I'm sure that I'll be doing another Try a Chapter Unhaul edition soon, since I want to get all of these through and see if I want to keep them or not, because I really want to unhaul books this summer. So probably there'll be another one in the next week or so, and I will see you next time. Bye.